Isabella Monroe stood in the tiny kitchen of her Seattle apartment, piping delicate rosettes of buttercream onto a wedding cake while her 5-year-old daughter Lily practiced counting with colorful blocks on the living room floor. The morning sun filtered through the curtains, casting warm patterns across their modest but cozy home. This was their life, simple and predictable, exactly how Isabella had built it after everything had fallen apart 5 years ago. The apartment smelled of vanilla and sugar, scents that had become as familiar as breathing. Isabella had worked her way up from dishwasher to assistant pastry chef at Bellevue's finest restaurant, pouring every ounce of creativity and determination into building a stable life for her daughter. Every cake she decorated, every dessert she perfected, was a small victory against the odds that had been stacked against her as a young single mother. Lily looked up from her blocks, her bright hazel eyes sparkling with curiosity. Those eyes haunted Isabella sometimes, reminding her of someone she had tried desperately to forget. The child had inherited so many features that weren't from Isabella's side of the family: the strong jawline, the way her smile could light up an entire room, the stubborn determination that showed itself even at such a young age. The phone rang, interrupting Isabella's thoughts. She wiped her flour-dusted hands on her apron and answered, expecting a client asking about cake flavors or delivery times. Instead, an excited voice informed her that she had won the grand prize in a contest she barely remembered entering months ago during a slow afternoon at work. A week-long, all-expenses-paid vacation to the Meridian, Miami's most exclusive luxury resort. Isabella's first instinct was to decline. Taking time off work meant lost income, and luxury vacations seemed like fantasies for people whose lives didn't revolve around making rent and childcare payments. But as she glanced at Lily, who was now building an elaborate tower with intense concentration, something shifted inside her. Her daughter deserved to see more than their small neighborhood, to experience the kind of magic that childhood memories were made of. 3 weeks later, Isabella found herself standing in the marbled lobby of the Meridian, holding Lily's small hand while trying not to gawk at the crystal chandeliers and fountains that seemed to belong in a palace rather than a hotel. Lily pressed close to her mother's leg, equally overwhelmed by the grandeur surrounding them. The resort sprawled along Miami's pristine coastline, offering infinity pools that seemed to merge with the ocean, private beaches with powder-soft sand, and restaurants helmed by world-famous chefs. Their room overlooked the turquoise waters of the Atlantic, and Lily squealed with delight when she discovered the massive bathtub and the basket of complimentary cookies shaped like seashells. Isabella allowed herself to relax for the first time in months, watching her daughter's joy and feeling grateful for this unexpected gift. Maybe this vacation was exactly what they both needed, a brief escape from the endless cycle of work and responsibility. The next morning, Isabella dressed Lily in her new swimsuit, a bright coral one-piece covered in tiny starfish, and they headed down to the main pool area. The resort was already buzzing with activity, families lounging on cushioned chairs, couples sipping colorful drinks, and children splashing in the shallow end under the watchful eyes of attentive lifeguards. Isabella found 2 chairs with a good view of the pool and settled in, applying sunscreen to Lily's eager, wiggling body. Lily dashed toward the pool with the fearless abandon of childhood, and Isabella followed closely, ready to catch her if she slipped on the wet tiles. The water was perfectly warm, and they spent a glorious hour playing games, Lily pretending to be a mermaid while Isabella acted as her dolphin companion. The outside world faded away, replaced by laughter and splashing and the simple pleasure of being present with her daughter. Then Isabella heard a voice that made her blood turn cold. Deep, confident, achingly familiar despite 5 years of silence. She turned slowly, water dripping from her hair, and found herself staring across the pool at Ethan Blackwell. He stood near the poolside bar, tailored linen shirt and designer sunglasses marking him as one of the resort's wealthiest guests. Even from a distance, Isabella could see he had changed since that summer they had spent together. His frame had filled out, his posture carried more authority, and his dark hair was shorter, more refined. But his presence still commanded attention the same way it had when she was 23 and foolish enough to believe in forever. Their eyes met across the sparkling water, and Isabella watched recognition flash across his features. Time seemed to freeze as they stared at each other, years of hurt and unanswered questions hanging in the humid Miami air between them. Ethan started moving toward her, his expression unreadable behind those expensive sunglasses, and panic surged through Isabella's chest. Before she could react, Lily splashed up beside her, tugging on her mother's arm. "Mama, watch me hold my breath underwater." The child took a deep gulp of air and dunked her face beneath the surface, completely oblivious to the drama unfolding around her. Ethan stopped at the pool's edge, close enough now that Isabella could see the way his jaw had clenched, the tension in his shoulders. He slowly removed his sunglasses, and she found herself looking into those steel-gray eyes that had once made her believe anything was possible. When Lily popped back up, sputtering and grinning with accomplishment, Ethan's gaze shifted to the little girl. Isabella watched the exact moment when comprehension dawned on his face. She saw him taking in Lily's features, the curve of her cheekbones, the shape of her nose, the way she tilted her head when she smiled. Mathematical calculations were happening behind those intelligent eyes, counting backwards from the child's apparent age to that summer 5 years ago when their worlds had collided and then exploded apart. The color drained from Ethan's face. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Isabella instinctively pulled Lily closer, her protective instincts flaring to life. This was the moment she had both dreaded and somehow always known would come, the moment when past and present crashed together and forced her to confront the choices she had made. "Isabella," Ethan finally managed, his voice rough with emotion. Just her name, but it carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken questions. Lily looked up at the tall stranger with innocent curiosity. "Hello. I'm Lily, and I'm 5 years old. Are you staying at this hotel too? It's really fancy, and they have cookies in our room." Isabella's heart hammered against her ribs as she watched Ethan struggle to respond to her daughter. Their daughter. The secret she had carried alone for 5 years, the truth she had convinced herself was justified, was now staring him in the face. "We need to talk," Ethan said quietly, his eyes never leaving Lily's face, as if he were trying to memorize every detail. "Please, Isabella. Give me that much." Isabella felt her carefully constructed world beginning to crumble like the sandcastles Lily loved to build at their neighborhood park. She had imagined this scenario countless times over the past 5 years, rehearsing explanations and justifications in her mind during sleepless nights. But none of her mental preparations had equipped her for the reality of Ethan standing before her, the shock and dawning realization etched across his handsome features. She wrapped a towel around Lily's shoulders and guided her daughter toward their pool chairs, her mind racing through possible escape routes. Maybe they could pack quickly and catch an earlier flight home. Maybe she could claim a family emergency and disappear before Ethan could demand answers. But even as these thoughts flickered through her consciousness, Isabella knew she was only delaying the inevitable. The truth had a way of surfacing no matter how deep you tried to bury it. Ethan followed them at a respectful distance, though Isabella could feel the intensity of his presence like a physical force. Other resort guests moved around them in their own bubbles of vacation happiness, completely unaware of the life-changing confrontation unfolding by the sparkling pool. A server walked past carrying a tray of tropical drinks adorned with little umbrellas. Children laughed and splashed. Somewhere nearby, a musician played soft guitar melodies. The normalcy of it all felt surreal. Lily settled into her chair and reached for her beloved stuffed turtle, hugging it close while she watched the interaction between her mother and this stranger with growing interest. The child had an uncanny ability to read emotional undercurrents, a skill that came from being raised by a single mother who sometimes struggled to hide her worries and fears. "Mama, who is that man?" Lily whispered, her small voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "An old friend," Isabella managed, though the word friend felt woefully inadequate to describe what Ethan had once been to her. "Sweetheart, why don't you watch the dolphins? I think I saw some jumping out by the boats earlier." Lily's attention immediately shifted to the ocean beyond the resort grounds, her young mind easily distracted by the promise of wildlife. Isabella used the moment to stand and face Ethan properly, her arms crossed defensively across her chest. Up close, she could see the fine lines that had appeared at the corners of his eyes, evidence of late nights and heavy responsibilities. He had built an empire since she had known him, his name appearing regularly in business magazines and technology news. "The beach," Isabella said quietly, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. "Tonight at 9. The South End where it's private." Ethan nodded slowly, his gray eyes searching her face for answers she wasn't ready to give. "Does she know?" he asked, the question barely audible. Isabella understood what he was really asking. "No," she replied simply. "And I need time to figure out how to handle this, Ethan. You can't just storm into her life and turn everything upside down." "Our life," he corrected gently, and the possessive pronoun sent a jolt through Isabella's chest. "If she's mine, if that little girl is my daughter, then you've kept me from 5 years of her life." 5 years, Isabella. The accusation hung between them, justified and painful. Isabella wanted to defend herself, to explain the impossible position she had been in, but this wasn't the time or place. Lily was watching them again, her young face creased with concern at the serious tone of their conversation. "Tonight," Isabella repeated firmly. 9 o'clock. "That's all I can give you right now." Ethan looked like he wanted to argue, to demand immediate answers and explanations. But something in Isabella's expression must have convinced him to wait, because he nodded again and stepped back. Before he turned away, his gaze drifted once more to Lily, who waved at him with the unself-conscious friendliness of a child who hadn't yet learned to fear strangers. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Isabella went through the motions of vacation activities, building sandcastles with Lily on the beach, eating lunch at the resort's family restaurant, reading stories during the afternoon quiet time. But her mind remained locked on the approaching confrontation, replaying the past and dreading the future in equal measure. When evening finally arrived, Isabella tucked Lily into bed and waited for the child's breathing to deepen into sleep. The resort had provided a childcare monitoring service, and Isabella reluctantly activated it, giving the front desk her cell phone number and promising to stay within the resort grounds. Every instinct screamed at her not to leave her daughter, but this conversation needed to happen away from innocent ears. The beach at night was a different world from the bright, cheerful daytime scene. Moonlight painted the sand silver, and the ocean whispered secrets to the shore in rhythmic waves. Isabella walked toward the secluded south end, her sandals dangling from her hand, her sundress fluttering in the warm breeze. She spotted Ethan's silhouette before she heard him, his tall frame unmistakable against the star-filled sky. He had changed into casual clothes, jeans and a simple white shirt that somehow made him look more approachable than the designer outfits he typically wore. As Isabella approached, he turned to face her, and she saw vulnerability in his expression that she hadn't expected. This wasn't the confident billionaire who commanded boardrooms and made million-dollar decisions before breakfast. This was a man whose world had just been fundamentally shaken. "Her name is Lily," Isabella began, deciding that the only way through this conversation was straightforward honesty. "She'll be 6 in November. She loves animals, especially sea creatures. Her favorite color changes weekly, but right now it's purple. She's smart, Ethan. Scary smart sometimes. And she's kind, which is harder to teach than intelligence." Ethan listened without interrupting, drinking in every detail about the daughter he hadn't known existed. When Isabella finally fell silent, he spoke quietly. "Why didn't you tell me?" The question she had been dreading. Isabella took a deep breath, tasting salt air and courage in equal measure. "You left," she said simply. "That summer we spent together was incredible, at least I thought it was. You talked about the future, about possibilities. And then you got that phone call about the investment opportunity in California, and you said you'd be back in 2 weeks. I tried to call," Ethan interjected, but Isabella held up her hand. "Let me finish. You left, and those 2 weeks turned into a month. I called your number, but it was disconnected. I sent emails that bounced back. I even went to your apartment, but you had already cleared out. It was like you had never existed. The old pain crept into her voice despite her efforts to keep it neutral. And then I found out I was pregnant. Ethan's jaw clenched. I lost everything when my startup partner embezzled funds and disappeared. My phone, my apartment, my entire life got seized by lawyers and creditors. It took me 6 months to climb out of that hole, and by then I thought you had moved on. I tried to find you, Isabella, but you weren't at your old address. Isabella felt her certainty wavering. She had built a narrative over the years, one where Ethan had callously abandoned her for bigger and better opportunities. Hearing his side of the story complicated the clean lines of blame she had drawn. I moved in with my sister when the morning sickness got bad, she admitted. Lost my job at the bookstore because I couldn't handle the smell of coffee anymore. They stood in silence for a moment, two people separated by misunderstanding and missed connections, by choices made without complete information. The ocean continued its eternal rhythm, indifferent to human drama playing out on its shores. I want to know her, Ethan said finally, his voice thick with emotion. I want to be her father, Isabella. I know I've missed so much already, but I can't miss any more. Please don't ask me to walk away now that I know she exists. Isabella had expected anger, demands, perhaps threats of legal action. But this raw vulnerability disarmed her more effectively than any aggressive tactic could have. She thought about Lily's questions over the years, innocent inquiries about why she didn't have a daddy like her friends did. Isabella had always deflected with vague answers about different types of families, but she knew those questions would only grow more insistent as Lily got older. She doesn't know about you, Isabella said carefully. She's never asked direct questions, but she's starting to notice that other kids have fathers. I don't want to hurt her, Ethan. Whatever we decide, it has to be about what's best for Lily. Agreed, Ethan replied immediately. So what do we do? Isabella looked out at the dark ocean, searching the waves for wisdom. We take it slow. You spend time with us, let her get to know you naturally. No big revelations, no dramatic announcements. Just time together, seeing if you actually want this life or if it's just the shock talking. Ethan stepped closer, close enough that Isabella could see the determination in his eyes. I want this, Isabella. I've spent 5 years building a business empire, accumulating money and success that feels empty at the end of the day. Maybe this is why. Maybe I was missing the most important thing all along. Despite herself, Isabella felt her defenses beginning to crack. She had been alone for so long, carrying every burden and making every decision by herself. The idea of sharing that weight, of having someone else care about Lily's well-being as deeply as she did, was seductive and terrifying in equal measure. Tomorrow, she conceded. We're going to the aquarium. You can join us if you want. But Ethan, if you're going to be in her life, you have to be all in. She can't be something you fit in between business meetings and investment calls. Children need consistency and presence, not expensive gifts and occasional appearances. I understand, Ethan said solemnly. Thank you for giving me this chance. I know I don't deserve it. Isabella turned to walk back toward the resort, then paused and looked over her shoulder. For what it's worth, I'm sorry too. Sorry that circumstances kept you from knowing about her from the beginning. Sorry that we both made assumptions instead of fighting harder to find each other. As she walked away, leaving Ethan alone on the moonlit beach, Isabella felt the first stirrings of something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. Hope that maybe, just maybe, her daughter might grow up knowing the love of both her parents. Hope that the broken pieces of their past might be reassembled into something new and whole. The morning sun streamed through the resort curtains, painting golden rectangles across the plush carpet where Lily sat arranging her collection of seashells from yesterday's beach adventure. Isabella watched her daughter from the doorway, coffee cup warming her hands, her mind still processing everything that had happened on the moonlit beach the night before. She had barely slept, tossing and turning while replaying the conversation with Ethan, analyzing every word and gesture for hidden meanings or unspoken promises. Lily looked up with her characteristic bright smile, the one that could chase away any shadow of worry. "Mama, can we see the fishies today? You promised we could go to the big aquarium with all the sharks and turtles." Isabella's heart squeezed with a mixture of love and apprehension. "Actually, sweetheart, we might have some company today. Remember the man from the pool yesterday? He asked if he could join us." The child's eyes widened with interest rather than concern. At 5 years old, Lily possessed an openness to the world that hadn't yet been tainted by caution or suspicion. "The tall man with the nice smile? Okay. Does he like sea creatures too?" Before Isabella could formulate a response, her phone buzzed with a text message. Ethan's number, which she had saved last night with trembling fingers, appeared on the screen. The message was simple and direct, much like the man himself had been during their younger days before life had complicated everything between them. "Good morning. What time should I meet you? And thank you again for this opportunity." Isabella typed back the details, her fingers hesitating over the send button before she committed to this path. There was no turning back now, no way to unring this bell. Ethan would be part of their lives, at least for the duration of this vacation, and possibly beyond if things went well. The thought both thrilled and terrified her in ways she couldn't fully articulate. 2 hours later, they stood in the massive lobby of the Miami Seaquarium, surrounded by families with excited children and couples holding hands while studying colorful maps of the exhibits. Lily bounced on her toes with barely contained enthusiasm, her new sundress decorated with cartoon dolphins swishing around her knees. Isabella had dressed carefully that morning, telling herself she wasn't trying to look nice for Ethan even as she changed outfits 3 times before settling on a simple blue dress that matched her eyes. Ethan arrived precisely on time, a trait Isabella remembered from their summer together. He had always been punctual, respectful of other people's schedules in a way that spoke of genuine consideration rather than rigid control. Today he wore khaki shorts and a navy polo shirt, looking more relaxed than she had ever seen him in the business articles and magazine profiles that occasionally popped up in her social media feeds. But it was what he carried that made Isabella's breath catch in her throat. A stuffed sea turtle, almost identical to the one Lily clutched constantly, except this new version was slightly larger and wore a small sailor's cap. Ethan knelt down to Lily's level, his movements careful and deliberate, as if approaching a skittish animal that might bolt at any sudden gesture. "Hi Lily," he said warmly, his voice gentle. "Your mom mentioned you like sea creatures, so I thought you might want a friend for your turtle. This is Captain Shellington. He's traveled all over the world's oceans, but I think he'd like to explore this aquarium with you today." Lily's face transformed into pure joy as she reached for the offered toy, hugging it immediately against her chest alongside her original turtle. "Thank you. Now Shelley has a friend. She gets lonely sometimes." The child looked up at her mother with shining eyes. "Mama, can he really come with us?" "Of course he can," Isabella replied, her voice catching slightly on the words. She met Ethan's gaze over Lily's head, seeing the emotion barely contained behind his careful smile. This moment, this simple gift and gesture, represented something profound. The first building block of a relationship that didn't yet have a name or definition. They moved through the aquarium slowly, with Lily darting from exhibit to exhibit while providing running commentary on every creature they encountered. Ethan listened with genuine interest, asking questions that made Lily beam with pride at her knowledge. Isabella hung back slightly, observing the interaction between father and daughter, looking for any signs of strain or artificiality. But what she saw instead was something natural and easy, as if they had known each other for years rather than hours. At the shark tunnel, where massive predators glided overhead through crystal-clear water, Lily grabbed Ethan's hand without thinking, her other hand already firmly gripping Isabella's. The 3 of them stood together in the blue-lit darkness, connected by the small child between them, and Isabella felt tears prickling at the corners of her eyes. This was what she had denied Lily for 5 years, this feeling of completeness, of having two parents who cared. "Mama, look at that one." Lily pointed excitedly at a hammerhead shark passing directly above them. "He has such a funny head. Do you think he bumps into things?" Ethan chuckled, and the sound brought back memories of lazy Sunday mornings and shared laughter over burnt pancakes. "I bet he's actually really good at finding his way around," he said. "Sometimes the things that make us different are actually our greatest strengths." The words held layers of meaning that went far beyond discussing sharks, and Isabella wondered if Ethan realized how profound his statement was. Lily's differences, growing up without a traditional family structure, had made her independent and resilient. But those strengths had come at a cost, one that Isabella had carried alone until now. They stopped for lunch at the aquarium's restaurant, sitting at an outdoor table with a view of the dolphin pools. Lily chattered happily about her favorite exhibits while demolishing a grilled cheese sandwich, completely comfortable in Ethan's presence. Isabella picked at her salad, her appetite diminished by the swirl of emotions churning through her stomach. Ethan caught her eye while Lily was distracted by a passing dolphin trainer. "You've done an incredible job with her," he said quietly. "She's remarkable, Isabella. Smart and kind and confident. That's all you." The compliment threatened to undo Isabella's careful composure. "She's had a good life," she replied, defensive despite herself. "We might not have had money or fancy vacations, but she's been loved every single day." "I can see that," Ethan said seriously. "I'm not criticizing, Isabella. I'm in awe. You built something beautiful while I was chasing success that suddenly feels hollow in comparison." Before Isabella could respond, Lily tugged on Ethan's sleeve. "Can I ask you something?" The child's expression had turned thoughtful, her earlier exuberance temporarily replaced by the serious contemplation she sometimes displayed when processing big ideas. "Of course," Ethan replied, giving Lily his full attention. "Are you going to stay friends with my mama even after we go home? Or are you just a vacation friend?" The innocent question landed like a bomb in the middle of their carefully orchestrated day. Isabella's hand froze halfway to her water glass, and she saw Ethan swallow hard before answering. This was the moment of truth, the point where pretty words and good intentions had to transform into actual commitment. Ethan looked directly at Lily, his expression open and honest. "I hope I can be more than a vacation friend. I'd like to visit you in Seattle if that's okay with you and your mom. Maybe we could go to more aquariums, or parks, or wherever you want to go. Would you like that?" Lily nodded enthusiastically. "Yes. And maybe you could meet my friend Sophie from school. She has a daddy who takes her fishing sometimes. Do you know how to fish?" "I can learn," Ethan promised, and Isabella heard the unspoken vow beneath those simple words. He was committing to this, to learning how to be a father, to fitting himself into their established life rather than demanding they reshape themselves to accommodate him. The afternoon passed in a blur of exhibits and gift shop purchases and more laughter than Isabella had experienced in months. Watching Ethan and Lily bond over a touch tank full of stingrays, she felt her carefully maintained walls beginning to crumble. This wasn't how she had imagined her life unfolding, but maybe that was okay. Maybe the unexpected could be beautiful if she was brave enough to embrace it. As they walked back to the resort in the early evening, Lily skipping ahead with both her turtles tucked under her arms, Ethan fell into step beside Isabella. "I need to tell you something," he said, his voice low enough that Lily wouldn't overhear. "I had my assistant do some digging yesterday. She found records of your attempts to contact me 5 years ago." Isabella's heart stuttered. "What?" "My management team was filtering all my communications during the legal troubles. They were trying to protect me from potential scams or people trying to take advantage of the situation. Your emails, your calls, they were all blocked before they ever reached me." Ethan's voice was rough with regret. "If I had known, Isabella, if I had received even one of your messages, I would have been there. I would have been there for everything." The revelation settled over Isabella like a heavy blanket, smothering the last remnants of her righteous anger. They had both been victims of circumstance, of miscommunication and misfortune. Neither of them had callously abandoned the other. They had simply been two people caught in the current of life's chaos, swept in different directions despite their best intentions. "I believe you," Isabella said softly, surprised to find that she meant it completely. They reached the resort as the sun began its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Lily was starting to drag, her earlier energy depleted by hours of excitement. Ethan helped carry the child when she stumbled, and Isabella watched her daughter's head settle naturally against his shoulder, trusting and content. Back in their room, Isabella tucked Lily into bed while Ethan waited in the hallway, giving them privacy for their bedtime routine. But as Isabella was about to turn off the light, Lily's sleepy voice stopped her. "Mama, I really like Ethan. He's nice, and he listens when I talk about fishies. Can he be my friend forever?" Isabella's throat tightened with unshed tears. "Would you like that, baby?" Lily mumbled, already half asleep. "He makes you smile more." "You should smile more, Mama." After Lily drifted off, Isabella found Ethan on the balcony, staring out at the ocean with his hands braced against the railing. She joined him in the warm evening air, listening to the distant sound of waves and music from the resort's beach bar. "She asked me if you could be her friend forever," Isabella said without preamble. "I think it's time we talked about what happens after this vacation ends." Ethan turned to face her, moonlight catching in his gray eyes. "I want to be in her life, Isabella. Properly, consistently, not just occasional visits when my schedule allows. I'm prepared to relocate to Seattle if that's what it takes." "That's crazy," Isabella protested. "Your entire business is based in New York." "My business can operate from anywhere with a good internet connection," Ethan countered. "But my daughter only gets one childhood, and I've already missed too much of it. I'm not missing any more." Isabella felt something shift in her chest, a wall finally crumbling completely. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Scared that she'll get attached and you'll realize this life doesn't fit with your ambitions. Scared that I'll start depending on you and then you'll leave again. Scared that I'm making another mistake." Ethan reached out slowly, giving Isabella time to pull away, and took her hand in his. His palm was warm and solid, anchoring her to this moment and this possibility. "I'm scared too," he confessed. "Terrified that I'll mess this up, that I won't know how to be a good father, that 5 years is too much lost time to ever make up. But I want to try, Isabella. I want to try for Lily, and for us." The last two words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Us. Not just co-parents or old friends, but something more, something that acknowledged the connection that had never fully died despite years of separation and hurt. "We take it slow," Isabella said finally, echoing the conditions she had set on the beach the night before. "You prove that you're committed to Lily, that you can be consistent and present. And then, maybe, we can figure out what us means." Ethan's smile was like sunrise breaking over the ocean. "I can work with that. I'm a patient man, Isabella. I've waited 5 years without even knowing what I was missing. Now that I know, I can wait as long as it takes." They stood together on the balcony, hands linked, watching the stars emerge one by one in the darkening sky. Inside, Lily slept peacefully, dreaming of dolphins and sharks and the new friend who had brought such light into her mother's eyes. The future remained uncertain, filled with challenges and adjustments and difficult conversations still to come. But for the first time in 5 years, Isabella allowed herself to hope. Hope that broken things could be repaired, that lost time could be honored even if it couldn't be reclaimed, that families could be built from unexpected circumstances and second chances. The story wasn't over, it was just beginning a new chapter, one written by 3 people learning to become something they had never been before. A family. 6 months later, Isabella stood in the kitchen of their new townhouse in Seattle's Fremont neighborhood, watching through the window as Ethan pushed Lily on the swing set he had installed in their small backyard. The child's laughter carried on the spring breeze, pure and joyful, and Isabella felt profound gratitude for the twists of fate that had brought them to this moment. Ethan had relocated his primary office to Seattle as promised, maintaining his business through video conferences and strategic trips when necessary. But he was present for the important moments, for bedtime stories and Saturday morning pancakes, for school concerts and playground adventures. Lily had started calling him Daddy Ethan without any prompting or formal announcement, the title emerging naturally as their bond deepened. And Isabella had learned to let down her walls, to accept help and partnership after years of fierce independence. She and Ethan had moved slowly, dating carefully while prioritizing Lily's adjustment to her new family structure. Last month, he had asked if she would consider wearing a ring that had belonged to his grandmother, a simple band with a single sapphire that caught the light like captured sky. Isabella had said yes, not because she needed Ethan to complete her, but because she wanted to choose him every day going forward. They were building something new from the ashes of what might have been, something stronger because it was founded on honesty and communication and hard-won trust. Ethan looked up and caught her watching, his face breaking into the smile that still made her heart skip beats. He said something to Lily, who waved enthusiastically at her mother through the window. Isabella waved back, her own smile wide and genuine, exactly as her daughter had wished months ago on a luxury resort balcony in Miami. She had sworn to keep her secret forever, believing it was the only way to protect both herself and her child. But fate, with its mysterious timing and unexpected reunions, had known better. Sometimes the truth demanded to be told, and sometimes second chances arrived disguised as coincidences at five-star resorts. Isabella opened the back door and stepped into the sunshine, ready to join her family in the simple joy of an ordinary Saturday afternoon. The past couldn't be changed, but the future stretched out before them like an unwritten story, full of infinite possibilities and the promise of happily ever after, one day at a time. The end.